Hello,
Hey, how are you?
hello, hello. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. Thank you for everyone joining us tonight. It's another, another time, another day for Echoes of the Shadows. I'm your host, Chris O'Toole, and this is my lovely producer, Gwen Johns. And tonight we are
Here.
going to be talking more, kind of delving more into the Houston murders, pretty much Dean Crowell, who his associates probably were, who he could have been, connected to.
Oh, yeah.
So, it's going to be pretty interesting. Pretty interesting. So, like what we talked about before with Dean Crowell, the Candy Man, the horrific crimes he committed in Houston during the 1970s. But today, we'll dig deeper into the web and connections that tied Crowell to much of the larger and more sinister network. A
Mm.
network that involves like child pornography, trafficking, and men whose names we may not heard before, especially John Norman. Okay, so Sean Norman was an American pedophile and sex offender and was convicted of numerous times between 1960 and 1998 of charges of child molestation and child pornography. Throughout his life, Norman operated with various direct mail services dedicated to distributing to child pornography and arranging sex trafficking. Among these operations were the Odyssey Foundation, based in Dallas, Texas, the Delta Project, the Creative Core, and the MC Publications of Chicago, and Handy Andy from Pennsylvania. So obviously, this guy was not dumb in any way, shape, or form.
Oh, no, not at all.
No, not at all. Not at all. Because Norman was known for his alleged links to serial killer Dean Crow and John Wayne Gacy. Later, via Norman's associate Philip Patsky, which we'll talk about him probably next week,
Hmm.
Norman used at least 20 aliases in his life, including John Paul Norman, Steve Gurwell, Alan Hitchcock, Charles Caldwell, Clarence McKay, and Patrick Nelson. He was eventually arrested for the last time in August of 1987 in Illinois and spent the rest of his life in state custody, where he died in 2011 at the age of 83. Now, this dude is like, seriously, I don't know how he got out as many times as he did and committed the same heinous crimes. You know, and even to this very day, I don't even think there's really, you know, really full extent laws of child offenders and I just sex offenders. Period. You
I don't
know,
think enough is done.
no, no,
It's not.
no. I mean, you know, I have my wife, and she had an aunt, and in the 70s, she was only 14 years old. She came up missing. She found out she was pregnant. She ran away. She went to
Mm.
her boyfriend's house. She told her boyfriend that she was pregnant, and he didn't take it too well, and neither did his older brother at the time, who was 19 of age. And they basically got her, they chained her up to a tree over by the San Jacinto River, because that was basically their backyard, and they tortured her for 3 days on that tree. Not only that, they sexually assaulted her, viciously sexually assaulted her, and they went and killed her with her own bra. They choked her to death. Yes, and this boy, he didn't even serve any time.
None.
None.
Oh,
His brother was the oldest, so of course he got charged, with her murder. But you know what? It didn't even stop there, because not only that they did this to her, the next night they decided that they wanted to sexual assault another woman. So they found
oh,
this woman walking in Baytown, kidnapped her. She was a mother of two, She was married, and they did the same thing to her. They sexually assaulted her. They tied her up to the tree. They chained her up, and they tortured her for an amount of days, and they killed her and threw her body with, my wife's aunt's body, and they didn't find them until a few months later.
Oh, wow.
Right. So these two people who were involved, they were brothers,
Mm.
and one brother um, served a 30-year sentence, but he got off on good behavior. His other brother didn't because he was underage at the time when these crimes happened. And so he was just kind of in juvie after 18. That was like time served. His brother got out, I guess on good behavior or whatever. He got on parole.
Yeah.
Obviously, the brother had a child, and the child had, he had a granddaughter, and
Mhm.
so he sexually assaulted this granddaughter for years. And the granddaughter was smart because she recorded most of this. She recorded the conversations that they would have on the phone
Oh,
and
wow.
had a camera in her room when the assault took place. And so when she turned 18, and I don't know why she didn't do it before then, but when she turned 18, she took all this evidence and took it to the cops, and then they arrested him. During his trial, the jury did not know that he was already put in prison previously for murdering a 14-year-old girl.
Oh, my goodness.
And so they gave him 200 years. 200 years. But
Mm.
it even goes even more bizarre because the boyfriend that basically murdered her too, as well, was
Mhm.
involved with her. He was picked up a few years ago because there was a body that was discovered on his property in a barrel. Not only that they let this boy go, that also too, as he was going in life, there's a possibility that he murdered more people. There's a possibility that, that he was a serial killer. You
That's
know,
crazy.
y yeah, it's crazy, and
That yeah.
now he's in prison serving time.
So he's got
So
200 years.
200 years. 200 years.
Mm.
200 years. You know? So it, it's just how wicked people would be with children. That they don't care. They have no remorse. You know what I'm saying? And it just seems like that is the norm, in a way, unfortunately. But just people just look away from it, and just when it's in their face, they're like, "Oh, wow, that really
Yeah.
happened." No, not. I would never think this would happen in this town. Well, it happens. It just happens
Yeah,
behind
it does.
closed doors most of the time, and so forth. But going back to Mr. Norman, he was born on October 13th of 1927 in Ada, Oklahoma. He was known to have lived in California, Colorado, Illinois, Pennsylvania, and Texas. July 44 article in the hometown's newspaper of Ada Weekly News states that he moved to Houston with his family in 1943. The article also states that Norman, then 16, was working as a radio engineer for station KTRH, that's ABC Channel 13 News here in Houston, and was planning to attend Northwestern University. In 1999, he was declared sexually violent predator by the state of California and was committed to Atascocita State Hospital. His psychiatrist, Dr. James Rivas, said about Norman that John is a unrepentant adult male sex offender who, in my opinion, will go to his grave without any remorse for what he has done. Norman was released from that hospital in 2008 under strict conditions, but soon returned to custody after handling a sexually suggestive note to a 19-year-old male clerk at a El Centro grocery store. Norman was recommitted to Colgonia State Hospital in March 2009, where he died 2 years later. Okay, so that's just like the icing on the cake to this dude. You know what I'm saying?
No
Like,
remorse.
no remorse. Okay, I mean,
No,
but
no,
his
no
his
remorse. Mm.
his crimes are mind blowing to me. You know, and the
Mm-hmm.
fact that he had went this far and what he did was just like completely just outrageous to me. So, in his early crimes, like Norman recorded back in the dates of the 1950s, where he was arrested twice for sexual assault in Houston in 1954 and 1956. Though it is known he was convicted of any crimes at these cases, but court records and some news reports indicate he was first conceived or he was first convicted of crimes in 1960. Norman was convicted of sexual assault in California in 1963 and in a federal court in 1970 for sending obscene literature through the mail. He received a 15 months prison sentence for the federal charge and served the time in the McNeil Island Federal Penitentiary. Now, one of his, well, we're going to talk about his organizations now, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Because I think it's just pretty sick.
I was looking at that and I was like, what?
I know, this is like a whole, conspiracy theory, like, I can't talk, conspiracy
theory. There you go.
conspiracy theory. Look, I didn't
It
take my
is. It's
smartphone
like
today.
And when you
Yeah.
said a ring of them, yes, it does. And he kept getting out, and they weren't doing anything. That's crazy. If he'd have got time back then, maybe, who knows? That's crazy.
No, absolutely. But this man just came out and he just did it again. So the first foundation he basically founded when he got out was the Odyssey Foundation in Dallas. So on August 13th, 1973, Dallas police received a memo from the FBI stating that they have talked to a 21-year-old named Charles Brisiden. I probably said his last name wrong. Who contacted the agency on advice by Rob Shivers, the Dallas correspondent of the gay magazine, The Advocate. Brissidine, I just said his name bad. I said his name worse. Like, am I having like a stroke or something? Because I can't talk right.
I hope not, honey.
No,
I hope
I'm not. It's just a joke. It's a joke.
I know.
I'm good. I'm good. So, Bresendine, that's what it is, told agents that he had been invited to Dallas as a fellow and by a sponsor of an organization called the Odyssey Foundation. And the sponsor was named John David Norman. And Brisendine would stay the night with at Norman's apartment. The both of them had sex. And then he began to realize that his sponsor was interested in preying on young men and procurement into sex and prostitution by leading them in under false pretenses of being a gay support organization. He began to go through the literature where he found like several of the fellows were missing or had the word kill stamped on their file.
Oh.
Yeah, right. Like, I mean, that would kind of concern me,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'd get out of there.
No, absolutely, man. So this dude, like, he felt like really concerned about it, and he put a connection that, hey, you know what? This dude may be connected to the Houston murders. The Houston murders. So as he stated, Norman would get agitated at the topic of the murders, and brought up while he was on the phone, and then he would call his friend at the Advocate, who suggested to talk to the FBI, Rob Shivers, and talked and both of y'all to believe that these stamp with kill files wasn't literal and was just instead a publishing term referring to trash, outdated materials. Okay, I mean, you can use it for that too. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
I mean, because that would just make me wonder, like, what's going on? If you feel it in your heart that there's just something not right, you go with that instinct. And I just really believe that that's what that dude did. He went with that instinct, So, but upon receiving the memo, the police jumped on the lead, quicker than usual due to the Houston murders and raided Norman's apartment at 3716 Cole Avenue based on a tip. Police seized booklets bearing the name of International and containing photographs and contact information of teenage boys and young men, as well as 30,000 index cards of listings between 50,000 and 100,000 clients located in the U.S. area. That's crazy.
That is absolutely crazy.
That is crazy. That is like really crazy. So the Dallas Police Department, Lieutenant Harold Hancock told Chicago Tribune in May of 1977 that the prominent public figures of the federal employees were among the names found in Norman's clients list. Investigators sent index cards to the State Department, a fact confirmed by the State Department counselor Matthew Nimitz. Nimitz stated that the State Department destroyed the index cards after determining for them not to be relevant to any fraud case concerning a passport. Norman was charged with possessing marijuana, conspiracy to commit sodomy, and contributing to the delinquency of a juvenile where he was released on bail.
Again.
I know, right? The Odyssey Foundation groomed teenage boys and young men from bus stations because they were known to be homosexuals. The boys and men referred to as fellows were photographed in booklets, trafficked to clients referred to as sponsors, who paid the company and the fellows that were trafficked across the country, staying with sponsors for 1 to 3 days average before traveling back to the next sponsor. That's, pardon my language, fucked up.
I'm sitting here going, what in the world? Why did they not keep him?
Yeah. Yeah, because it's like he did it again. But this time, there was public officials that were involved in his child ring, And so, just for all the stuff that he possessed, that should have put him in jail for a good long time. But the fact that they dwindled all this stuff down, to a marijuana charge and indecency with a child and so forth like that, when there was a lot more that was at stake, that probably would have brought down, the government, part of the government. That
you know what it makes me think? That somebody in the police department or whatever there maybe was in it. Seriously.
No, most definitely. I believe that that stuff happens.
Yes.
And it happens more than what people, think it does. Because, who would think, okay, of, a public servant of the law, someone in law enforcement that would traffic drugs and do all these things because they're here to serve and protect, because a lot of people I know, to them, denial is bliss.
Yes.
Okay. Like if they don't see it, it doesn't pertain to them, then it doesn't happen. If they do not experience it themselves, or they don't live that life, or, what I'm saying, it doesn't align to their values, then, what I'm saying, it goes out the window.
Yeah.
It goes out the door. And I just feel this is what happens, when our justice system becomes, exploited. And because of this, because of what we think, okay, well, there's just like there's just only a few people in law enforcement who are corrupt. No.
We don't know that.
No. That's just no such thing. I can just tell you firsthand. I'm not going to tell you what town it was in, but I did work, in a part of law enforcement. I worked at the jail, and I can tell you firsthand that I saw so much corruption that I resigned from my position. So I would not put it far-fetched that, this was a cover-up.
Yeah.
Because, that can bring like the whole police station down, or, You don't know. It could have been a mayor. What government official, what federal worker, who are these people on this list that we didn't see that got destroyed? And it's just like, when let's just look at, um, man, I can see him plain as day. Um, Epstein. Are we really going to see the Epstein files? Are we really going to see, that is like, is Trump going to ever, you know, release the whole file? No, he's
Who
not.
knows?
He's
Yeah,
not. Because it's going to take half of probably all his friends with him, you know?
that's true.
So it's all
So
an inside game. You know what
that's
I'm
sad.
saying?
It's very sad. Yeah, but that the thing is, there are some good law enforcement out there, lots of it, and
There is.
there's only so much they can do.
And you know what? And I'll tell you this, like every time when I do run into, an officer and everything, I do tell them like, hey man, thank you for what you do. Thank you for, for your protection.
Yeah,
Because I think cops need to hear this, even dirty cops, because that's the thing, man. There's nothing really good about being a cop. Okay, let's just face it. Law enforcement. I'm not saying it's not a good thing being a cop of like to protect and serve. Yes, I give the utmost respect. I have family members who worked in law enforcement, and I've seen, what it does to people who work in law enforcement, the trauma, because majority of the time when you are a cop, you're doing more things, you're trying to prevent, or you're going to a negative situation to a positive
yeah,
one rather than a positive. And that's what I'm trying to say about, being a cop. Um, but my hat's off to him because that's a lot.
it is.
That's
And I
really a
have a
lot.
lot of friends, and you guys, anybody that's watching law enforcement, I give it out to you, and I always have.
No, absolutely,
Just to be.
absolutely.
So after this, he went over to what, Illinois, to his hometown,
Yes, he
right?
sure did. Yes, he sure did. So, like, after being released in Dallas, he went to Norman went and fled to Homewood, Illinois, a suburban of Chicago. In the late of August of early September of 1973, using the name Steve Gurrow, he began living with Charles Railing, an Odyssey client from Homewood. Norman had previously trafficked a 16-year-old boy from Independence, Missouri, to Railing, who went on a trip to Europe with the boy. Dude, that's just like crazy. That is some Epstein stuff, man, right there. During his time in Homewood, Norman sexually abused 10 teenage boys, enticing them with beers, showing them pornography, and committing acts such as groping and oral sex upon them. Homewood police received an anonymous call on October 31st in 1973 stating that Steve Gorel Norman was sexually abusing boys. Norman was out of town at the time, but but were able to locate Railing, who assisted them in their investigation. Upon this return of Homewood on November 14th, Norman was arrested and charged with 5 counts of indecent liberties with a child and 8 counts of contributing the delinquency of a minor. So in 1976 of spring,
Again, more.
again, while waiting on his trial on charges related to the Homewood crimes, Norman was bailed out of Cook County Jail for $36,000 by an unknown person in California. In December of 1976, he was sentenced to 4 years in prison and sent to Pontiac Correctional Center. Shortly before he was released on bail, Norman began his next sex operation. The Delta Project began publishing newsletters called Hermes from Cook County Jail. Norman sent out 3 newsletters using the jail's printing press, claiming that the Delta Project aimed to provide educational, travel, and self-development opportunities for qualified young men of character and integrity, and that the Delta dorms were being established across the U.S., with each dorm having 2 to 4 cadets overseeing by a Dawn. The police allege that the cadets were underage male prostitutes recruited in Chicago. Okay, and in May of 1977, interview with the Tribune, Norman denied the newsletter to over 7,000 people. At the time of the interview, the police said the newsletter had 5,000 subscribers and grossed over $300,000 per year. Like, look, man, I am not about like dealing a kid, okay? But this dude is a genius. Like, he
Yeah.
made this money. Like, I'm not saying like, bad entrepreneurship. Bad entrepreneurship. You should never sell a child. You should never touch a child. You should never
Right.
have any type of anything, okay? But the fact that this dude was in prison, okay?
You see what Sean wrote?
Gacy
Was
was
Gacy
not,
in that ring?
he was affiliate, like, I don't think he was with this ring.
Mhm.
But there are affiliations with them.
But think about it. How many 5,000 subscribers, and they didn't have the list? How could they not have the list?
No. This is over again. Like, this is like when he started over again. You know, I mean, think about that. It's kind of hard for us just to do that to get views.
Yeah.
It's and
hard.
Get subscribers. And like, if we have technology at our fingertips, and these dudes use like melons and stamps, and I mean, that is just like insanely crazy.
Yes.
But okay, Norman was paroled in the fall of 1977, but arrested again in Chicago in June of 1978 for having sex with two underage boys from a local foster home and taking pornographic pictures of both. One of the boys informed the investigators that Norman was in the process of selling him to a client, and he and Norman were simply waiting for a plane ticket. Norman was accused of refounding Delta Project, now called the Creative Corps, and MC Publications. I know, like, this dude just does not stop.
No, I mean, he's in jail. He's sending out letters from jail. I mean, good grief.
I know, right? So after being released from prison and operating it out of his apartment at 685 and a half West Wrightwood Avenue, alleged sending photos of boys to a Dawn in Canada, and the rate of the apartment, 20,000 pink index cards, or possibly 50,000 to 100,000 containing the name of customers were found. See what I'm saying?
And they never did anything with them. They had names.
Yeah, but think about that. The crazy thing is that these are people, who get off on kids.
Mm-hmm.
These are people who are probably doctors, lawyers, engineers. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Like, these people are probably people that people would not even suspect them, having this type of, arousal. So this goes into another question psychologically. Is this is it a nurture versus nature thing? Is this just like a vicious cycle where these people who commit these crimes, of, having these urges to be with young kids, is this something that was taught when they were younger, what I'm saying, of sexual abuse, and they're just continuing the cycle? Or is it that, they've had a good childhood, no one's ever touched them, but they just have these urges? You know what I'm saying? I mean, is it a chemical imbalance, or is it something that was, agitated or an offset by life, by trauma? So that could just be a ever ongoing, conversation on that. But guess what? He had another prophet.
Yet another.
another organization. So between October of 1983 and May of 1984, Norman produced and published a child pornography magazine called Handy Andy. Like, that's just horrible. And like all the way around, man. You know, so he did this from his rural home, a nearby motel in Aspers, Pennsylvania. He exploited at least 20 teenage boys from the area, enticing them with drugs and alcohol, and photographing them engaging in various sex acts. Norman fled Pennsylvania after his home was raided in May 31st of 1984, but was captured in Bolingbrook, Illinois, in October of 1984, where he was released on bail of March in 1985 and promptly fled again.
Again.
I mean, like, look, man, this like it does not take a rocket scientist to figure out, looking at his criminal record, that this dude should not be in public. Like,
No,
he should not be there. And if they're worried about his life being in prison, well, you know what? He made his bed. I'm just saying, you know, I don't believe in.
And I'm guessing they didn't have the sex offender list back then like we do now.
Right? I mean, this is like, it's pretty horrible.
80s, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you know. So Norman was convicted of child molestation in Colorado in 1988, and of distributing child pornography in California in 1995 and in 1998. He was released from prison in California in 1999, but he was declared sexually violent predator like he was in California, and he was detained indefinitely back in the hospital and eventually released to the rural town of Boulevard, California, under strict conditions. And on February 2nd, 2009, Norman violated those conditions by giving a note containing his contact information. You know, it's the same. He does the same shit. Sorry, excuse my language.
And look, he got busted for it. What did he do all those years that he was actually out and they didn't know he was doing stuff?
Right.
I have to show you guys a picture of him. Hold on. I have to show it. Now, let me get up there. I'm sorry. Okay. That's him, right?
Yeah. Too bad. It looks like my grandpa, man. That just.
But look at that face. He just.
That's not right.
Yeah, no.
That's not right. You know, look, man. I'm just thinking, like, did he? Look, I hate to play the race card here. You know what I'm saying? But was he able to recommit these crimes and all that because he was a white man? You know, from back in the day. You know, because if it was a black dude or someone, a minority, you know what I'm saying? They wouldn't get out. They wouldn't get out. And I'm not trying to throw that card out.
No, I'm saying.
I'm just saying, like, is this the reason why he recommitted these crimes? Because of, you know? I mean,
look, that
from back
there's
in the
no
day,
way all that, and still. And there's no telling how many people. There's no telling how many people he reached out. But, you know, they kept getting these cards. And they had this mailing list, and they never did anything with it. Why would they not do anything with it? I don't get it.
You know, and I mean, I hate to say it, but someone who is reoccurring, who is reoffending all the time,
yes.
You know, like, I do agree with Sean. I just think that the people who constantly do this, when they do it so many times, you know,
there we go. He said when. All right, can you read this? He said when he was on an investigation, we found a book that was published from Chicago area about these kids. About kids. Wow. I think I do remember him. That's
and I do agree with Sean, you know, about, you know, like, if these are like reoccurring offenders and they cannot help themselves, and you know, and they've done whatever, then maybe the death penalty is an option. You know what I'm saying?
They're not going to stop. They don't have any remorse.
I mean, even if you chemically castrate them, you know, they still offend.
Yes.
You know, you don't have to have a penis to offend. You know,
he knew something, and he knew someone in high places. Yeah.
No,
He had to
absolutely.
have.
No,
He had to
absolutely.
have.
Because if he had a list of government officials,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying, and federal officials who were on this list that they burned it because they knew that if this came out, that it would just be like an uproar. I mean, just like the Epstein case, and so forth. But like now, let's talk about the possible connection to Dean Kroll. Okay.
Yes.
So, following Norman's 1973 arrest in Dallas, news reports indicated, police were investigating if he had any ties to the serial killer Dean Kroll. Kroll murdered at least 28 teenage boys and young men in Houston between 1970 and 1973. Kroll himself killed no, Kroll himself was killed on August 8th of 1973 by his accomplice Elmer Wayne Henley, just days before Norman's arrest. Norman had previously lived in Houston, and as evidenced by his 1954 and 1956 arrests there. And additionally, the source tipped off the police about the Odyssey Foundation was a prostitute involved in this organization and got scared with an identified man in Houston requests his services. So, I mean, there could be,
Could be.
you
Very
know,
well could be.
Henley gave a statement to the police following Kroll's death in which he stated that Kroll claimed to be involved with a Dallas-based organization that brought and sold boys and ran whores and dopes and stuff like that. Police stated that did not think Kroll's other accomplice, David Owen Brooks, was involved in the Odyssey Foundation, but also did not rule out that Kroll and Henley as being involved, though stated they had no evidence connecting them to Norman's organization. But in 1975, however, Houston police reported finding pictures depicting 11 of Kroll's victims during a raid of a child prostitution ring, once again raising the possibility connections to Norman. Now, I do, like, in my heart, you know what I'm saying? I do believe they knew each other.
Yeah.
You
I
know
do
what I'm
too.
saying? Because, and this is the reason why, because remember, what, a few episodes ago when we played the video
Yes.
that I took, you know what I'm saying? The
Yep.
ITC of like tapping into Dean Kroll's consciousness, and it said record. Okay, so I'm seeing, you know what I'm saying? When I heard that, I just saw like, like a tape recorder, you know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? And, like a reel to reel or a reel. So, I mean,
Hmm.
he could have been making snuff films, and the fact that he had,
Back in that time. Yeah.
right, because I mean, they had all this, material, and I mean, I know someone who owns a snuff film that they got off the black market years ago, you know, and that stuff is high dollar,
Yes.
and it's just like it's very hard to get. So, and
You guys look at these people. Look at these people. You have to look. There's David or John David. Look at him. And then you have Dean.
yeah, and
Look
see
at that.
the thing about Dean Kroll, people who knew
Mm.
him before all this stuff ever happened, they're like, oh, he's a nice guy, he's laid back, he was involved basically kind of in the community in a way, and giving
That
candy
happens
out to
so
kids.
much. I mean,
Absolutely, like John
I do
Wayne
the serial
Gacy.
killer show.
Yeah,
And Thomas Gormley, love you. He has taught me so much about looking, seeing.
Thomas is awesome.
Yeah, I actually saw somebody that was obviously a predator when I was out of town, let's say. And we called Thomas and told him, we said, look, this guy's just, it's obvious. You look in his
Yeah,
eyes and you can see it.
right.
Yeah. So, love you, Thomas. He knows. He's coming back to your show, I believe, isn't he?
You know what? I have not had a time. I have not had a chance to like call him because, like I said before, just to let y'all know, guys, I am rebranding the show, And so
Yes.
that's what I've been kind of working on. So Echoes of the Shadows will no longer be next week. It will be Outcast Pirate Radio.
Yes.
And the reason why I'm changing it, because, when I was offered this awesome, opportunity, it was just something that I had to jump in real quick. I didn't put a lot of thought into it. Hey, Mark, how's it going, man? I hope
His show's
everything's well.
next. Yeah.
Awesome, awesome. And so I took some time out to rebrand. I'm almost there, with everything, with my merch and everything. So
And it's awesome, guys. I'm telling you, when she releases it, I've seen it and it's great. So yeah.
thank you,
Look
thank
at
you,
her. She's
thank you.
grinning.
No,
It
but
is. Look at he's good. Yeah. Mark's cool.
no, Mark is cool. Mark is cool people.
Yeah.
I loved him on my show. He was great. And I wish him the very best. With All Access Network. I think
Well, we
he'll
got more
be.
people coming too, and some of it thanks to
I
you also.
Yes, yes.
I'm
I
not
kind
calling
of see
any
that.
names, but I'm
No,
excited. One of
nah,
my
I'm
favorite people.
nah, man. I'm excited. I'm excited too. I'm excited that everybody's getting this opportunity, because I just feel like on this platform, you know, we're here to be ourselves. We're
Yes.
here to, talk about, different things, and the
Hmm.
reason why that, I changed my brand to Outcast is because, look, man, I've always been an outcast. You know what I'm saying? Like, I've never really fit in anywhere. I was like in between, like a cool person and a dork. You know what I'm saying? So, and
You
a
fit in with
nerd.
us perfectly
Yeah,
then.
exactly, exactly. And and there's gonna be times that I'm gonna have conversations. You know what I'm
He said he's
saying?
going to send you money for saying that.
Woo!
Yeah. Let's
You know,
see.
but there's gonna be some conversations that are gonna be,
Right. Working
right there
together.
on that edge. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And
That's why you see the
not
banner
every
at the bottom. That's why it's always there.
Yeah, I mean, because and look, man, in life, you can't really sugarcoat anything anymore. Dork paranormal. Yeah, right,
That's,
right.
yeah, we need that.
No,
We need that.
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, look, that would make like a great magazine, like digital magazine.
Well,
So for like,
I have my own little name for one. I'll have to share it with you one day.
okay,
But I don't want to put it out. It's very cute. So it's very me. But yeah, we have a great time here, you guys. And I know we talk about serious stuff and all, but
yeah,
like
and there's gonna be times where we're gonna have a good time.
you see, he'll make shirts.
I, you'll
There you
make shirts.
go. We'll all
I,
wear them.
well, I got shirts. Yeah, make them, make them. Like, I'll wear a dork.
I
I'll
will
wear a dork
too. I'll be
shirt.
standing up going, looky, look. Yeah,
Yeah,
we talked about serious stuff, but it needs to be talked about because it's not. I mean, this man went to jail. I lost count,
yeah,
and they keep
yeah.
letting
I
him
mean,
out
and he offended again and again and again,
again.
and why some of these, sex offenders just like pop up with, somebody's head on somebody's porch,
Yeah,
because of the fact that, this happens. And like, look, I don't know how true this is. Okay, I really don't know how true this is. Okay,
it's all
but
right.
there was this guy that I met, and at the moment he was under the influence of drugs. I think he was on meth or something, and he had like this club hand. I'm not making fun of people with disabilities, okay, but this dude
Mm-mm.
was like, he was redhead, he was ginger like me and all that, and then he was telling me, in his, I guess, elevated self, he was like, yeah, man, I'm gonna buy a house in Bandera, and I just think it sucks I can't have my money. And I'm like, what are you talking about, your money? He was like, oh man, I have like over $10 million in my account, but I can't touch it because I have to go through my my attorney to get it because I got a drug problem. I don't have a drug problem. And I'm like,
And he's
okay.
floating above everybody high. Oh yeah,
Yeah, yeah. And so
yeah.
he tells me like about like his arm or whatever, and he was like, and when I went to prison, no one didn't mess with me because of my club arm. And I'm like, oh, okay. I said, you went to prison? I'm like, what'd you go to prison
Mm-hmm.
for? And he told me that he was like, oh, I stabbed this guy like 44 times and chopped him up and threw his body in the water in trash bags. And I'm like,
Yeah, I'd have been peace out.
okay, yeah. And I'm
Yeah.
like, but no, but not me, not me. I'm like
No, that's
intrigued. I'm like, go
hey
on,
Jeff.
go on. Tell me, how'd you do this? Like, I want to hear this story, man. You know, and I like,
Mm.
you're playing with me. You know, I'm just like, whatever. And he's like, no. I was like, well, how did it happen, man? How did it happen? He was like, it's like I was at a party and I was gonna go to the restroom and I walked into this room and I saw this guy, taking advantage of this kid and I blacked out and I murdered him. And he's like, because it happened to me when I was a kid. And then he tells me
Okay.
about his family and how he has all this money. So his family's a part of a um um uh a well-known family here where I live at, and they used to they own the first petrochemical company. Hey Jeff,
Oh,
how's it going, buddy?
yeah. Jeff's
Yeah,
good. He hangs out with us a lot.
and yeah, and so a bigger international gas company bought it or whatever. But he
Oof.
was telling me how like his grandfather did this to him and did this to his mom and his sisters. Not his sisters, but his other
Mhm.
siblings. And so it's like, you know what he asked me? He asked me for forgiveness on his deathbed, and I told him no. And I'm like, well, okay. But yeah, but I mean, he told me that's the reason why he did that. So look, I can't like I looked in the, newspapers. I didn't find anything about this. I don't even know where it happened at. He didn't tell me.
Yeah.
I didn't see anything, in that manner that happened here, because I would think that it would be,
Oh,
in
yeah.
the newspaper. But
Yeah.
at the same time, if it was from a prominent family, they'll probably keep it under wraps. Who knows?
Who knows? Well, we've got like 10 minutes.
All
So
right.
why don't you wrap it up and we've already told them next week we're gonna be kind of continuing. So
Yeah, we can definitely continue because we're gonna continue on the next person. And that dude, like, look, man, we saw that picture of him. You remember when you posted the picture of
mhm.
him? Like, I don't even know it. Look, I haven't even like looked at this dude yet because the fact that I've been so busy doing the stuff, and I had like, some, information about Norman, but
Mhm.
his little
But you guys
sidekick.
he look at him. Y'all, something ain't right.
No,
That no. Just no.
no, no, you know what? He looked like that grandfather you can't trust at a family reunion,
Or that
like,
that uncle that sits in the chair and just stares at everybody and makes weird
likewise,
remarks.
Mark. It's good
Yeah.
seeing you too.
Yeah.
Hey, but guys, I appreciate y'all coming on my show tonight, and it was kind of like an really rabbit hole, in-depth type of thing. And especially if you're a psychic medium or you just have that creativity and you listen, it's just, I don't know,
You're
it's like
right, Mark.
really
It's scary.
insane. It is scary. And the scary the fact that this stuff still happens,
Yeah.
and where I live in Houston, Texas, we are the mecca of child trafficking,
Well, look where
and
you are. Look at your area.
oh
I have
yeah,
to
oh
tell you
yeah.
something. I have
Yeah,
to
go
tell
ahead.
you something too. You're gonna have to go back and look at the thing and look behind you. Just saying.
Why did I have somebody come behind me?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Like, okay, like when?
It's a
Just
guy. It's
just
some guy. I
just
don't know.
now?
I asked Sean, did he see anybody? Because I did, and I was like,
Look,
yeah,
man,
yeah.
this door just opens by itself. Like I said, like this house was kind of like it's like a hodgepodge, you know,
Yeah.
and so forth like that. So um these doors in here are like over 100 years old. The whole kitchen is like from the 1940s. Like we still have like the old stoves and everything in there
Yeah.
because it was made for uh my uncle's grandmother who couldn't see, she was blind, and they
Oh
sold the
yeah.
house that they had, and they had a bed and breakfast. So they
Oh
just put everything like it was in the house. So
yeah.
she
So she
knows like
knew.
we're right, right. And so and these cabinets back here were
Is
like
that the grandmother that I saw? That one?
no, 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 that was my
No,
grandma.
not now. That
No, that
another
was
one.
my
Okay.
grandma. No, that was my grandma.
Yeah.
No,
Mark
but
said that's happening. I'm assuming he's meaning the trafficking in Tennessee also.
oh yeah. Oh yeah. And it's it's just getting worse and it's just like they start grooming in elementary school. You know what I'm saying? They start just like the gang members, they start grooming, and they'll just start grooming children, girls and all that. Hey, come to this party with me, come meet my friend, and they'll drink and get high and then meet
Yeah.
this guy
Mark,
who's a
I
lot
have told
older.
Chris that we need to go to her house and investigate so many times. So many.
Yeah. Well, like I said, this land here, I think used to be the old pipe yard, for Humble Oil. So I think they used to make stuff. So back in the day, they didn't have OSHA. So
Oh
I'm
no.
pretty sure there were accidents here, people died here, and
Yes.
then the land was owned by um my son's stepdad, his family, and they were from Germany and so forth. And so they purchased the land, they built these houses out here, and yeah, but there's weird things that happen. Like,
Yeah.
didn't I show you like that video? There was there was a leaf and it was just levitating and it was just
Yeah,
floating
you
back and
did. You
forth.
did.
And then like there was no spider web or nothing that was holding it
Yeah.
and so forth like that.
Well, Mark,
So
we're going to have to collaborate and get together again and talk about the trafficking.
no, no,
Yeah,
absolutely, absolutely, because
absolutely.
I do believe that is very important, for the awareness.
Yeah.
My wife, she was a school teacher. She had a child that was trafficked at a
Oh
young
no.
age. Okay, look, man, she was like teaching seventh grade, and this poor kid, she was trafficked. They got her. They brought her back. She only stayed in school for so long, and she went back out on the streets because she needed the drugs.
Oh no.
Yeah, yeah, and it's just like it's just a vicious cycle, and
It
and with
is.
the bad part about it is that it's things that you see every day that you wouldn't, and some
Yeah.
of these kids that are being trafficked are being trafficked by religious organizations like churches and everything
That's
like
a
that.
shame. That's a
Yeah,
shame.
and that's just like yeah, it's really sad. But some next week we're going to go ahead and continue talking about the Houston mass murders, who could possibly be a part of it, and then we're going to be underneath a new name, you know so that's
And I
going to
can't
be
wait.
pretty
Chris does
cool.
her own graphics and stuff, so I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, I've been a graphic artist for years. I've done, branding and product, for a long period of time. And like I said, my computer is really old. Yeah, I mean, it's like obsolete. But thank God for SaaS, which that is like software, on the cloud that you can like
Hmm.
work and do things. And I have a great AI marketing platform
She
software that
does. She
helps
does
me do
awesome
all
work.
this stuff. Like everything that you see that I've posted, like all the videos and all that, I've actually created, off that AI marketing platform. Not
Yep.
only that, I mean, it has a CRM, it has email marketing. You can do everything that you need to run your content creator. If you're a
Hmm.
podcaster, you know, if you're a paranormal investigator, and you're trying to get your YouTube and get followings or Twitch or anything like that, man, I mean, the software is like really cool. And I was able
Thank you,
to,
Sean.
well, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. And,
Yeah,
and
Sean. Sean's actually a I'm gonna call him my backup. He's my backup. He's got his own thing, but he helps out us and we help out him, and he's the thing. Well, we got just a couple minutes and then I gotta go to Mark's show. So why don't you just close us out?
all right. And guys, thank you for like listening. I greatly appreciate it. And next week we'll have another intense, most interesting conversation.
Yep.
And March 5th, we will have Mr. Nathaniel Elwell coming.
He's one
and
of
we're
my
gonna.
favorites.
I know, like, awesome. I love him. He's like,
I do too.
he's dude. He's my
He's
dog. I
gonna
love him.
laugh when he sees this. He's gonna be, they are so crazy.
Oh yeah, man. Like we had some good times. We have some good times. It's never a dull moment between him and I. Like I love to make him laugh, make him spit
Yes.
spit out his beer. It's great. He does the same for me. And
He's cool.
unfortunately, life has been really busy for both of us, so we've
Yeah.
just not had time to shoot the shit and so forth like
Gotcha.
that.
All
But
right, you guys, we're gonna pop off here.
all right,
And
guys, and y'all have a
have a good
nice
one.
week and enjoy the next show.
All right.
All
Thank you,
right.
Chris. Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.